This is Why We Draw. This is a series of discussions about the roles of drawing in human culture and discourse. I'm Garrett Bertner, and with me I have my colleagues John Weir and Rob Culbertson.
Hello, hello.
And today we have a special guest. Reed Leslie is joining us. He's an Anchorage businessman and tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Reed.
Well, thank you.
And tell us, why do you draw?
Why do I draw? Well, that's pretty open-ended, isn't it? That could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, I've been an artist since I could pick up a pencil. For real. And really, my parents never pushed me the whole way and supported me as an artist. Of course, they never expected me to be a tattoo artist. That's for sure.
Yeah, when we came up to with the concept for Why We Draw, I started to try to think about the creative spaces that people who draw live. And I think one of my inspirations for inviting you was you've gravitated now to the iPad and doing
my digital art. Yeah.
And it's actually really remarkable. And your time lapses that you do. Maybe
pretty
you could
neat,
talk
isn't it?
about that.
Pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
The digital stuff. Okay, so like when I sit down to paint or when I do a tattoo, that's a quick design thing because all the work really goes into the actual tattooing. And I did some projects here and there as far as doing paintings, maybe some murals, like just right down Spinard here on the back of Poncho's Villa. You see the flower guy?
Oh, yeah.
I did that.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
you.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I have projects that I take on, but there's not a whole lot of money in doing stuff like that or doing like a 50, 100-hour painting and attempting to sell it. And so it's tough to sit down after a full day of tattooing and then continue drawing and painting. That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But then the iPad came out with the Procreate app, which is really fantastic. It's very powerful, second only to like Photoshop. And so I found a way for me to paint and sit on my ass on the couch and watch movies, and it worked great. So, and I also started learning this right when the pandemic hit, right prior to it. So it took me a solid year or two to really figure out what I was doing. But I have produced some 50 paintings, like big paintings at this point.
Yeah, but you also use it as a tool for experimenting with what the tattoo might look like in a time-lapse situation.
Absolutely. So there's the design process, which I can definitely give you guys. I can send you some of those videos if you want to add them to this.
Yeah, for sure.
I've definitely got some really cool time lapses. So it shows you the design process, and I get somebody's ideas, and then of course, people aren't artists. You know, most people have no idea what they're doing. They just have an idea of what they want to get done. Same thing in architecture, I'm sure. And so then I do all the research and put things together and labs and like layers, and then the whole design comes together. And then I can send that to you the night before your tattoo. And so it's pretty neat, really. It's really, really neat process. I'm very happy about that part of it for sure.
Yeah, the reason I really like that is because you can see ideation and process just unfolding, and you can see where you're just like, put that in the trash.
Some ideas come in, and you're like, nah, that ain't working. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, Reed, you probably, like we do in architecture, you probably see a lot of kind of half-baked or sketches and ideas from clients that you kind of get a sense of what they're trying to do, but it's really they're struggling to express themselves, and then you need to help them.
That's exactly it, and everybody. That's how that has to go, because most people aren't artists; they can't envision things in their mind. But with the right subject matter, I can envision it right away. Sometimes it takes a while to build up to that idea.
And you sprang out of the crib and grabbed a pencil
that's pretty much,
and started drawing. Yeah. How did you get into tattoo work?
Well, I'd been an artist. I did all the AP classes. I did college classes in high school. And I got the highest score possible, actually, in high school, the AP classes. I don't know if you know anything about that. It's rated 1 to 5. And they send everything off, your entire portfolio, to get studied. And they give you a grade on that, and as to how much credit you got in college for that high school class. So I definitely got the highest score possible. And I started going to UAA when I was 19 years old. And I was also playing in bands, like punk rock bands, playing bass. And so I was around more tattoos.
Right.
That's the gateway drug.
The gateway drug.
The musician thing, sure. And so I actually just ordered a bunch of equipment and started pretty much fucking my friends up.
So I have a couple things about that that I think is fascinating. Is two things: moving from a medium in which you paint or draw to a medium in which you're using human flesh.
It took years. To achieve what I could do with a pencil, to do it with needles in your skin for permanence.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about what your fundamental difference is between the two. And it seems very ephemeral, and it's very personal, very intimate.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Like my customers are more discerning, I guess is a good word, discerning when they come to me, because there's already a 6-month waiting list. If you want to come to see me, you've got to wait. So that weeds out a whole lot of different people.
They don't stumble. They don't stumble in off the street.
Nobody comes in drunk. I don't allow that kind of a thing. And so, being that I have discerning clientele, then I get to know them quite well. And so between getting to know somebody's personality and their ideas, because ideas do grow as an artist and as a collector, the ideas will change and grow. So that's pretty neat, being able to get to know somebody and attempt to read their mind or their permanent tattoos on their body. Because I can't read somebody's mind, but I can try.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how ideas grow, or do you have an example? Is that a collaborative process, at like kind of what you bring to the table?
It's all about imagery, really. Like you can write a poem about your tattoo, and it's not going to do nearly as much as you showing me 20 pictures of references that relate to your idea. So like I've certainly had clients come in and ask me to read a poem. I'm like, oh God. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the imagery. I mean, it does to some degree, but not really. So when it comes down to being an artist, really picking somebody's brain is difficult. It helps me more to have that imagery. Like, show me things that you like, that you love, and that you hate on the same subject. And now I'm able to kind of pick your brain apart to try and read your brain for the best tattoo for you.
One of the things that Garrett had brought up when the three of us were talking about this particular podcast was one of the differences between the kind of graphic art that is made and the ink art that is made is that the ink art is temporal, right? Because eventually this beautiful piece will, either be in the grave or be ashes. So,
yeah, I mean, first when I thought about it, because I'm sort of an outsider to the world of tattoos.
Sure, most people are.
Yeah, but I was thinking when I was growing up, I always was a little intimidated by the idea because it's so permanent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, is it permanent? And it's permanent in the sense of that person's life and
to
story.
the individual.
Right. But in the sense, it's more transient than some other art forms that might be independent. You could put it in a file somewhere, or in a museum,
or in a museum, right? Like a painting that will never go away. That's correct. Like the Mona Lisa, it is far more transient than that. And most people can't afford the Mona Lisa.
No.
Of course, nobody can. But you can afford a beautiful piece of artwork on your body.
Mm-hmm.
Permanence.
Yeah.
That's yours and your own. Nobody else can own it.
Yeah, I like that. So that's a very democratic art form.
Yep.
can you, I want you to draw the difference between the gear that you use, the tools that you use, and the new generation of tools that are being used.
Oh, it's incredibly different. Yeah. Okay, so the original tattoo machine was actually invented and patented by Thomas Edison. Yeah. So that was our original coil machine. Electromagnetic coil with two springs, a spring that touches a contact and jumps up and down, right? So it was originally made for, as a stencil machine, I believe. So for like sewers and stuff to like stencil out the pieces of whatever they're trying to sew together for clothing and things like that. That was his original idea. Of course, he didn't think it was going to be used for tattooing. But that's been around for 100 years and it's been perfected. It's very solid state equipment. Whereas like the spring, where there's a spring and a coil. So the spring, the steel stock, when it hits, when I touch the skin with that coil machine, it can feel the tension in your skin. So it won't allow me to go too deep. But now, with the advent of newer technology, most tattoo artists have now moved to all disposable gear, and they're using what's called a rotary machine, a pen rotary machine. So it looks like a dildo. And
Great.
You just click the little needle in, and off you go. The difference being is that rotary machine cannot feel skin tension. So all these new artists it's hitting the skin really, really tough. Whereas like an original coil machine, which I've been working with for most of my career, can absolutely feel the tension of the skin. And whether it's thicker and whether you've got thinner, like, depending on the spot in the body. So I can adjust my voltage to adjust for skin. And there's just so much more that I can do with the original machine than you can do with these newer tools. And these newer tattoo artists don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about coil machines, what we've been using for 100 years. And so the tattoos that you see now have been simplified, completely simplified. Everything's outliney and very solid. You can't create gradients. I could never do a portrait with those. Never. It's just not delicate enough.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating to me also because, so full disclosure, Reed's done a massive ink on me, on my back specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And the gradient is fascinating because, sometimes if it's a hard line, I can definitely understand what that is. And then you do this other thing where you rotate your wrists around and lay down this gray matter and you see it right after. And the fascinating thing to me is like, when I see it, what you're looking at is like black and then smudged.
Yeah.
So you tattoo a little bit and then you take the paper towel and like smudge it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just got to take years of understanding what that smudge looks like to what the actual outcome will be.
That's correct.
It's
most
so
people,
fascinating.
most people can watch me do a tattoo, watch me work on them. Not your back, obviously, but when I touch it to your skin, it's like a calligraphy pen. So the ink flows through it and just down the needles. They're not hollow or anything like that. It's like little sewing needles. And so the ink flows down it, but as soon as I touch that to your skin, that ink flows onto the skin. So you can't, like, as somebody who doesn't know about it would be like, you can't even see what you're doing. You can't see where you're at because there's a pool of ink around exactly where I'm trying to draw. And that just comes with experience, is knowing exactly where the needles are and what you're doing. But there's always a little pool of ink.
Reed, you talked about how it took you years to learn how to do with a tattoo gun, what you could do with a pencil, essentially.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges there? Like, what were the issues that you encountered?
Well, creating a gradient is everything, and not overworking somebody. That's a big one because, especially with these new rotary machines that I was talking about, it's super easy to overwork somebody and
Can you tell us what overworked means? Scarring?
Oh, scarring, yeah. Overworking the skin, getting it to the point where you're scarring somebody as opposed to just laying ink and into the dermis at a millimeter.
And then that's not going to heal.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
You're just going to get scarred. You're going to lose ink. You're going to lose color. Yeah. It's pretty easy to overwork skin.
So one question I had for you was the difference in the ink. Like I can see older tattoos where they're just fading out.
Yep. There's a huge, that's just comes with time because, in time is to grow and to change. And so we've learned a lot about tattooing as far as the needles, and the pigments go. So with the needles, the old school guys in the 50s and the 40s were tattooing, and it was bold will hold. And so, draw a big hard line. And so it would generally go subcutaneous right through the skin layer into the fat layer. So if you do that, and that still happens to me working on older people, like the collagen isn't there, the fat layer isn't there.
He's talking about me.
Yeah.
A little
We
bit.
knew that, John.
That papery skin.
Yeah, so you gotta be careful with that, especially with old guys. Without that, it's pretty easy to go through. And so it didn't matter, age. And back in the days, the needles, they would, and also, to go subcutaneous was pretty normal. And that's why the spreading of the tattoo. Okay. So over time, they've immediately, the initial tattoo has gone right through the skin and into the fat layer. And so it's just going to keep spreading over time. So when you look at a 70-year-old guy's sailor tattoo and it's spread out and it's just, you can't tell what the hell it is. That's because they didn't really know what they were doing with the needles back then. And the machines weren't nearly as complex or precise as they are now.
Yeah. So
pigments as well. The colors were different. The inks are different now. So the reason that color tattoos are so bright now is because we figured out that it comes down to the actual micron of the grind of the pigment. So the size of each micron of pigment has everything to do with how your body handles it and stays.
I'm trying to think of another medium where your work can change so much over time. So like as an architect, you're building ages.
Yeah.
It might certainly feel like it was designed of an era, for instance.
Well, and they decay.
And they decay.
In the environment. So not unlike a tattoo on a body.
Just on a much larger scale.
Have you had a chance to, revisit some of your older work, to look back at something you've done a decade or 20 years ago? What's that experience like?
It's not great.
Of course.
It's not awesome. I've got boxes of pictures from 30 years ago of me tattooing, and they're all terrible. But they're just as good as what these young guys are doing with these fucking dildos.
But some of it's obviously you've grown, you've progressed and continued to master your art over the time. But there are other factors you have no control over. Like if someone were to gain weight, lose weight.
Once you leave the shop, once you walk away, I have no idea what you're going to do. You could go work on a car and rub diesel fuel into it and ruin the whole thing. So once I'm done, I don't know what's going to happen really.
So I know that when you and I were working together, that you basically craft your own needles.
That's something the new tattoo artists don't even know how to do.
Yep. Maybe talk a little. I just think that's fascinating because you said, "Hey, I had to create 2 new needles."
Every time I tattoo you, I show up early and make needles just for you.
Yes, I love it. Hey, tell me, maybe talk about what your maybe top 3 ink pieces have been that you're like super proud of.
Well, I would like to show you more than I would like to tell you, but
sure. Well, we'll capture that. But maybe talk about it and then we'll overlay it.
Yeah, I can certainly give you all those images, no problem. John, you're up there. Absolutely. One of my favorite tattoos.
He was definitely fishing for that.
Yeah,
he was definitely fishing for that.
It's generally the larger things that are bigger scale where it's a completely fluid piece of artwork, like a whole sleeve that's completely fluid. It's not like a bunch of stickers all over you, but it's an actual complete picture that goes up and down your arm or on your back or wherever it is. Those are my favorites. And generally my favorite stuff is wildlife or, pinups and women and, tits, things like that.
Yeah, of course.
Beautiful natural things.
Yeah. Those are the things that really I like doing the most. His are really complex. His tattoos are very challenging, but I like the challenge as well. That's very important. And that's a big part of, especially at the tattoo shop where I'm at, people see my stencils or my drawings where that's the done drawing ready to put the print on. It's a stencil that I put on that I've got, that I can work from on your skin. And so they see what I do and they're like, I don't know how you do this stuff. Like, just blows everybody's mind. I'm like, well, people bring me hard stuff because I can.
Yeah. Reed, what's a great client for you? Like, what's a really good day? Oh, you dug right into that assignment.
I think somebody who gives me freedom. Like if you're being very restrictive on the artwork or whatever your idea is, if you're being super restrictive, it really holds me back artistically, right? And so that comes down to being able to read somebody's mind, I guess, as well, like getting to know your client, and they have to be able to trust that you're going to do something far better than they could have envisioned. And that happens every time.
Yeah, I know that when I come in and see you, you're like, okay, John likes Tool radio. So
we rock
Tool
out.
Radio.
Yeah, it's great. We rock out.
Yeah. And so one of the things I want to kind of pivot to is that has always been fascinating to me in our profession. We go get a degree, and then we spend a lot of time mentoring younger people to do what we do. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how is it camps of people, or are people, artists open to, hey, I want to teach you how to do what I do? And I'm just interested in that mentorship and how that works in your profession.
Well, I can tell you now that it was a very difficult thing to even get into in the 90s, which was when I started. It was very difficult. You're never going to get an apprenticeship. Nobody's going to teach you anything. It was a very hard thing to get into. And so I have an idea of like, if I'm going to spend that time and energy into teaching somebody, I need to know that you're a great artist to begin with. Like if you don't draw and you don't have a portfolio for me to look at, that you haven't strove to achieve this, then I'm not going to waste my fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we go through that for hiring people.
Sure.
You show up and you're like,
you need to impress me right out the gate or it's going nowhere. I need to know that you're going to be dedicated to this art form.
I love hearing that because I think we could double down on that in our profession.
Well, and it trims down on how many tattoo artists there are, which is actually a good thing because we're seeing the profession disappear. Really.
Do you really think that? Because it feels like there's been such a resurgence in popularity and
absolutely.
Destigmatism.
Well, it's
like,
there's TV shows.
Yeah, it feels like the last
Miami
20 years,
Ink,
so much more ink. Go to a public pool, and it's like
far more acceptable than it's ever been, no doubt about it. And that's not going to change. It's going to keep going like that. Like you're going to see more and more and more tattoos everywhere you go. Like we were just at the Spinard Roadhouse. I saw John there, and some 20-year-old girl walking around with a big line down her face.
Yeah.
Like in the 90s, that would never fly. Never. And because I've been doing this so long, I don't do stuff like that. People come to me for a face tattoo and I'm like,
this is what I'm interested in.
Like, we don't really do that here. I don't come from that school.
Was that Alaska Native person?
Yeah.
So that's
she didn't look very Native to me, actually.
Are there tattoos that are like, job killers? Like,
absolutely.
You see these guys and you're like,
absolutely.
Wow.
That's another reason why I don't do things like that, like faces and necks, throats, hands. And I'm a tattoo artist. I've been doing this for 30 years, but you're not going to see a tattoo on my hands. I like the idea of being able to wear long sleeves and nobody knows it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's very important. Like, this is a strange world and people are going to judge you. And absolutely, there's a lot of job-killing tattoos out there. And this young generation doesn't understand that.
Have you ever thought of starting a sort of not a school, but like a workshop program where you could interview and pull in 3 or 4 people that you think
that could be worthy of teaching these skills to,
and they would pay.
Nope,
they would
never
pay
crossed
you
my mind.
Well, that's why we're here. New ideas.
No, it's always going to be the individual. It really is. And in any place that has a school for tattooing, they're producing terrible tattoo artists. I promise you. It's far more personal. You need to learn from a master. Yeah.
Well, when I start with you, every time I say, take your time, you're the craftsman. And, and I really believe that because, I've seen a lot of the work that you've done, Reed, and it's so impressive in terms of its depth.
Well, yeah, that's the goal, is to achieve 3 dimensions out of a 2-dimensional shape. Well, I mean, the human body is 3 dimensions, but a piece of paper is 2 dimensions. And to be able to create 3 dimensions from a 2-dimensional space is the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about your other work that you're doing, the paintings, and what your subject matter is, what your inspirations are.
Again, wildlife, tits.
Fantastic. Together or?
Sure.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, a lot of that. A lot of wildlife. What am I working on now? I am working on Arctic lynx, new lynx painting at the moment. So,
what do you do for source material?
Photos.
You go out.
It's all about photography.
You find photography. You take
online,
photography.
You name it. Yeah. I've done my own photography before. Like I do a lot. I'm a avid fly fisherman, so I've been out to Katmai a couple of times and been around a lot of bears, like a lot. One float trip, we floated a river for a week. And you're in a new camping spot every night, and you float every day and catch a lot of fish. And in that 1 week, we lost count of how many bears we fished with, camped around, and floated past. We lost count after 240.
Oh,
And I have a lot of photography from that. And so I've done a few of those tattoos where they like loved my photography of the bear, which is really neat. Something I can take a photo of that bear myself and do the tattoo and make money that way too. It's pretty neat.
that was in Katmai National Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other things that has always fascinated me about tattoo, piercing, the kind of the, and I think this is the draw for people like me. There's a sort of subculture or like something's happening that is secret in a way. And I'm always fascinated about that and seeing the clientele that comes and goes. And maybe talk a little bit about that.
That's what, subculture. That's what it is, subculture.
Yeah, like punk rock.
Yep, correct.
Reed, I've seen all the episodes of Ink Master, so I'm something of
I haven't seen one.
Of an expert when it comes to tattoos.
I refuse to watch that show.
I'm gonna go home and watch somebody tattoo.
But I was kind of
Like,
curious.
are you fucking crazy?
I know there are a lot of different styles, for instance. So,
absolutely, yeah.
You must have encountered situations where someone's trying to get you to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, I know.
They have a vision. You have your skill set.
I know my limits. I do. I'm like, it's not really up my alley. It's not like the sacred geometry stuff and just like lots of triangles and straight lines and like some of it just doesn't interest me.
It's easier later in your career,
Of course.
when you have a 6-month backlist to be a little picky
Of course.
than it is maybe starting out sometimes. And I know a lot of people struggle with that, and maybe compromises made along the way.
What about your business side? So how did that develop? Did you work for a studio? Did you start your own business?
I've had my own tattoo shops. I was actually up in Fairbanks for 5.5 years.
Oh.
There was no tattoo shops in Fairbanks at all. And so I had a buddy who was one of my best friends, moved up there to go to college. And I moved up to Fairbanks and brought my ex-wife with me, and she's ex-wife now. And started a tattoo shop up there. And I still can't fathom why people live in Fairbanks, Alaska. I did my time, and I treat it more like a prison sentence than anything else. But I did learn a lot. I got to do a lot of tattoos and learn, the business aspects and all that kind of stuff. And I've traveled around, I've worked in shops in Hollywood. I've worked in shops in Hawaii. I've worked all over the place. Just traveling around, staying a few months here, a few months there. And mainly that is for, learning, essentially. It's like getting tattooed is like a private course. Really, you go to somebody who you really admire and get a tattoo from them, you're going to learn a lot.
Are you still learning?
Every day.
Yeah.
And as soon as I know everything, I'm probably quit.
Mastery. Yeah. We talk about this a lot. How do you get to mastery? And I've been practicing for 31 years, and
there's no way to know everything.
I still learn a ton every day. Some days I wish I hadn't had that day. Like I can't get that day back. And some days I'm like, man, that's the best day this year.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your paragliding hobby.
Oh yeah. Well,
because you're a fly fisherman, we got that one.
Yeah, fly fishing, whitewater rafting, snowboard. I do a lot. I'm a very active person, but the question was the paragliding. Okay, so I actually had some really good friends in Girdwood. I lived in Girdwood in the 90s, and they used to do paragliding there at Alyeska. And they did tandems, and they did schools and all that stuff in the 90s. And as soon as they sold it, and the son of Geico Insurance bought it, like in early 2000, he shut it down for insurance reasons. So no paragliding.
Of course.
So, yeah, the guy who owns the insurance, no more of that. And so
just going to buy up all the risky businesses and close
one of my
them.
buddies who was a teacher, he packed up and moved to Colombia just to keep paragliding and just to keep moving. So the reason I did that, I turned 40. And I flew to Colombia and took a 2-week course. It's straight 2 weeks of paragliding and learning and learning and learning. So I got my license to do that. I went straight from Burning Man to Colombia for my 40th birthday.
Well done.
Yeah.
From I turned 40, we got to turn it up, right?
After something like that, after like 2 weeks off, are you eager to get back into it?
I haven't flown since August at this point, and I'm going to be flying here in a week and a half, and I'm very fucking excited.
For a month.
Yep.
That's a lot of.
I'm not going to fly
airtime.
every day, but yeah.
So you hike a mountain and with your pack, or you
I'm
get a
pretty
ride?
lazy. I'm pretty lazy as far as that extreme hiking goes.
Yeah.
But no, not where I'm going. You can just drive right up.
You drive up, yeah.
Yeah, same with Colombia too.
All right, Reed. I've heard that tattoo artists have the craziest stories. So, I mean, is
Oh,
there,
boy.
what can you share with us?
It's all going to be
craziest,
all
most
the ones
challenging.
all the ones that stick in my head are going to be dirty, nasty stories.
Great,
And I
let's
don't-
hear one.
I don't know that you guys want to hear some of these things.
Maybe the rated R version, not the rated X version.
Reed, what's the most challenging project you've done?
These days, it's not nearly as challenging. Like dealing with people can be more of a challenge than the actual artwork.
Well, we've talked about this in the past, but like John being a creative, is that more of a collaboration? Because sometimes working with other creatives can be a real butt of heads.
No, it's absolutely a collaboration on his ideas and my ideas, and I show him a spread of where my head's at, and he's like, I like where this is going and where this is going, and so that helps me elaborate on what we're going to do next.
Yeah, at this point, I've lost pretty much control over what's happening.
I'm 100 miles ahead of
It's
him
like-
on this.
Okay, yeah, that looks great.
Yeah. And every time it's better than he would imagine,
Yeah.
which is the goal.
But I feel like that's how you get the most out of any creative, right? Whether you're talking to a florist or a tattoo artist or an architect.
Give them
It's
the
like-
freedom to be the artist that they know they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of what I'm thinking. You know what you do much better than I do.
Yeah.
As long as we're on the same page.
Reed, have you ever played with the AI
A
digital?
little bit. Yes. Actually, recently I have been playing with AI, and it was a big Phoenix that I was starting on. And so he was basing it off of a peacock. So I actually generated AI images of peacock feathers, and I got some really neat stuff, and we used it. Yeah, like last week.
Yeah, Rob introduced me to this recently, and
I'm not sure what to think of it quite yet. I mean, don't hate it. Use it as a tool.
yeah.
Well, I think that you have to understand it.
Yeah,
too. Just like
yeah.
any other advance in technology, I think that, we do well to kind of, dig in and
Well, yeah, take it
understand
use it
what
as a
it can
tool.
do.
Don't I'm not going to hate it. I mean, it's really incredible what AI does these days. It's really incredible, especially me as a portrait artist. I see what these AI generate. I'm like, that looks like a photograph. Like, how do you discern this from reality? It's tough. And I feel like I've got a good grasp on it when I look at an image. I'm like, okay, that's AI. But it's getting worse and worse where you can't tell.
Mm.
Well, as a tool, I can see how AI would be really helpful. But as a professional, I think you're pretty safe from AI taking your job.
Yeah. And also, like using those images, AI generated images, I don't feel bad about plagiarism at all. Whereas if it was another artist that had drawn it and I'm using elements of it or, somebody's face or that I want to use for a portrait, that's plagiarism to some degree. But an AI generated image, I don't worry about that. That's just somebody typing in words.
Well, and the images are taken from all over the internet.
Correct. It's an
derivative taken
it's an
from multiple
amalgamation
sources.
of 1,000 images.
Yeah, they're plagiarizing all the artists so you
Everything.
can get something
Correct.
that's not.
Wow.
Correct.
This is a third rail, guys. We got to be careful here. We're going to touch on some heavy stuff.
So, Reed, I have another question for you about. We're doing this Why We Draw podcast. Is there an artist or somebody that you know that we should be talking to in this way?
Oh, to add to to this podcast?
Yeah, as a guest. What guest creative that you think?
It would obviously somebody local, but right offhand, I don't have anything in mind.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I do know a lot of great artists here in town, like Duke Russell. He's been around for a long time, done a bunch of paintings in the Humpies and all that stuff. And he might enjoy doing something like this. as far as the tattoo artists I know, I think I'm probably the only one who'd be willing to come and do this.
Now, why is that? Is tattoo artist a type? You defy the stereotype?
Yeah, not anymore. It used to be like that, but not anymore. You just don't know. Yeah.
Could be anybody.
Yeah, it could. And they don't even have to be a good artist.
Anything you want to share about the creative act?
Well, just like I suppose, I don't know, envisioning something in your mind and being able to lay it down on a piece of paper is a very challenging skill. Like envision something in your mind and just and being able to put it on the paper just the way you wanted it to be. It's a very challenging thing.
I did a lot of life drawing in college and afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I did that
so
too.
I did a lot of training, of my hand-eye. But then for fun, as a game, I would try to picture instead in my mind's eye something and then draw it. And I'm not talking about abstract drawings. I'm talking about figurative drawings.
Figurative. In your mind, it's hard.
It was,
really
I did
hard.
it just to laugh at myself mostly because it is quite.
It doesn't really come together to go actively doing it. You can envision it in your mind. It's not going to lay on the paper exactly like that. And it's the same thing with architecture, I'm sure. You've got this idea.
Yeah. It's a
But
feedback,
it's the physical, the action of actually doing it where it really comes to life.
Yeah, I mean, architecture is a lot more collage-like in that we put some things out there, we push them around, we reshape them. You think about it a little while and then change it. Repeat and repeat.
That's exactly it. And it's part of that time lapse that John was talking about. That's the same thing. The idea is there, but it takes, an amalgamation of ideas to create the final image or the final building.
I think that's a good close.
That was pretty good, you guys. I didn't hate this at all.
It's fun. It's
You
fun
were
to
right.
talk about what we
John,
love.
you were
Yeah.
right.
I told you it was going to be fun.
Well, Reed, we really appreciate you being here and kind of sharing some of that perspective. And it's so interesting to get your insight because it's completely different from anybody else we've talked to.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And this idea of the permanent but not permanence is just still so
Yeah,
fascinating.
it
to
really
me.
is, huh?
Yeah, transient. Okay, I think
You
we're wrapped.
want to take us out, Rob, or
I
are we
think we
just
got
using
it.
an old?
No, we'll can it.
Why We Draw is a production of MCG Explore Design, located in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Subscribe to Why We Draw on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss an episode. You can watch Why We Draw on Spotify and YouTube, and send us your comments on future episodes at exploredesign.com/whywedraw. Thanks for listening.